Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Eat the Donut, where we are achieving some fat loss freedom with a good old happily ever after. Thank you so much for tuning back in, my beautiful donuts and munchkins. I forgot that in the first initial line of the intro. My beautiful donuts and munchkins out there. Hope you are doing well. Hope you're having a great day so far. So in today's episode, we are going to be chatting about common mistakes you're making with your calorie count, and calorie counting being a great tool to help you create more awareness, give you more insight on your overall nutrition. Now, I will say I don't think it's a tool that you have to do forever, day in and day out, forever on ever. But I do think it can be really helpful, and there's a lot of net positive things from it that can help you create more awareness of how much you're eating, or how much you maybe are or maybe how consistent you're actually being with your overall nutrition. Because when we create awareness is actually power for ourselves. You know, when it comes to going to therapy, when we're having sort of challenges with our mental health and there's something going on, what therapy does, it helps create awareness, right? It helps you create awareness of like, oh, I act or react the way I do because of this, or from my childhood, or whatever it may be, right? So you create awareness of it, and then from there, we can start to figure out solutions. But we don't know what maybe is the best solution without that awareness. And having that awareness is going to be super, super powerful. When it comes to tracking your calories, it gives you a clear and honest look at your total intake, and there's no guesswork behind it. We're not guessing and seeing what's going on, but it gives us just, again, a little bit more data to make better adjustments when it comes to our nutrition. It can highlight some things for us. It can also help us improve food choices, right? When you're tracking, there is that layer of accountability, right? There's that layer of like, all right, should I have the extra cookie? Should I have another slice of pizza? Sort of allows you to slow things down and check in with yourself. And that can be a positive thing with making your food choices over time. Obviously, it's going to help educate you as well, educate you on portion sizes. It's going to help educate you on what's in your food, right? You might be tracking the foods you've been eating. Maybe you're very new to tracking in general, and you still kind of keep your diet the same, and you start tracking things, and you might notice, hey, I'm actually not having that many foods with protein in it. So now I need to start finding other servings of protein that can get my protein up. You know, maybe you thought peanut butter was a great protein source, where yes, it has protein in it, but it's going to be a little bit more of a fat source. Most of the calories from peanut butter come from fat. So it can be great education from that standpoint. And it's also just going to be data-driven adjustments, right? If the scale isn't moving, we're going to kind of go over that today as far as what things you might be missing. Because obviously, if you're having 1,200 calories a day and you're not losing weight, all right, there's most likely something going on that you're missing, because ideally that's going to be a number that helps a lot of people lose weight. But let's say you've been tracking, 2,400 calories a day. You've been making progress for, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then at that standpoint, it's like, all right, well, maybe you could do a little bit of a maintenance phase and take a little bit of a break and increase your calories a little bit. But then when we go back to a fat loss phase, maybe you take off another 100 to 200 calories, because the number you were at is maybe your new maintenance now. So we just have to make a slight adjustment. And then, of course, it can be helpful as far as, like I was saying, decision making, more mindful eating habits, building mindful eating habits by slowing you down, making you think about what you're eating and bringing the intention back to your meals. So let's talk about the most common mistakes individuals make when calorie counting, when tracking their calories. And these are things that might be easy to overlook, and that could be hindering your progress in the long run. And I'll pinpoint where you might be making these errors and hopefully provide some clear solutions for you so you can have some actionable items here. So make sure you listen to this entire episode to understand what you need to do now. If you've been tracking your calories and you feel like you're at a pretty low number, and you're having a hard time making progress, and by a hard time making progress is kind of getting ahead of myself. Maybe you're just impatient. So give it some time. But if you feel like you've been stuck for a bit, hopefully this gives you some great insight on what you need to do to begin seeing those results again. But I'm going to start off by sharing a quick story about one of my clients who made phenomenal progress. Lost over 20 pounds, gained a bunch of muscle, gained a bunch of strength. So she was a mom of 3. And before this scenario, we were probably working together for about 3 to 5 months. And what happened was, after a couple months of just being frustrated, progress really not moving all that much, feeling like she she plateaued. We started to dive into the details, doubling down on her accuracy and her consistency behind tracking. And just over conversation, we noticed she was consuming more calories than she thought through some licks, bites, and nibbles, and more on that later on. But they weren't being tracked. There was a lick of this, as a nibble of this, right? Finishing her kids' plates, having a little bit of a snack while she's cooking dinner. So we started to make that awareness where she recognized, she was like, you know what? I do have some licks, bites, and nibbles. And I'm always sort of maybe snacking on my kids' stuff. So we made a deal. I said, hey, no more licks, bites, and nibbles. Or if you do have a lick, bite, and nibble, I don't care if it's 5 calories, 10 calories, 20 calories, you track it. Everything that goes in your mouth hole, I want you to track it to a T. So we cleaned up her tracking, and it ended up making a huge difference, leading to 20 pounds down, gaining a bunch of muscle and a bunch of strength. So that little adjustment of just being more aware of your licks, bites, and nibbles made this huge switch to having her, one, getting back on track, making some progress, then over time, continuing to make progress. And that ended up being a large factor of why she was stuck, why she wasn't making any progress for a couple months. So let's dive into it. And I feel like I'm delaying the first point I'm trying to make here, but I always want to like just come back to this. Being in a calorie deficit where you burn more calories than you consume is the only way to lose weight, is the only way to lose fat. Yes, it is that simple. We don't need to make things more complicated than it needs to be. Eat fewer calories than you burn, you will lose weight, you'll lose fat. So here's the truth. If you aren't losing weight, if you aren't losing fat, you are not in a calorie deficit. That's the hard truth. I know it might be frustrating. I know it might not be the answer you want to hear. And I'm not saying this is your fault, by the way. Just like the example I gave of that mom where she just wasn't aware of the licks, bites, and nibbles. And when we created awareness behind it, it started to make a difference. So there might be something you're missing. There might be something you're unsure of. But that's why we're doing this podcast today, so we can create awareness behind it and you can get some insight on it. So if you believe you were in a deficit, and again, over time, you aren't noticing any progress, there may be something missing. So let's figure that out. So first up on the list of one of the most common mistakes when tracking your calories is your tracking accuracy. You are guesstimating. This is one, if not probably the most common mistakes individuals make when tracking calories, is they're guessing and needing to be more accurate with the portion sizes. If you are guessing or inaccurately tracking your portion sizes, you could be missing hundreds, even thousands of calories you didn't know you were consuming. This puts you over your calories and becomes the factor for your lack of progress, because people tend to guesstimate when they go out to eat, or even if they're making like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich where they thought they had 1 to 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. But when we actually used the food scale, we saw what they were actually tracking was 4 to 5 tablespoons of peanut butter. And something again like peanut butter, seems like peanut butter is my example today for a lot of things, where it is calorie dense, right? You're having about 200 calories per serving. So if you take that 1 to 2 tablespoons, which is roughly 200 calories, to 4 to 5 is anywhere from 400 to 500 calories. So that's a upwards of 400 calorie difference, maybe even more for some individuals. So instead of guessing and just eyeballing everything, use tools. I personally like to use the food scale and weigh everything out. It's going to give you the most accurate reading when it comes to your tracking of calories, but it's also, again, it's going to educate you. You're going to look down, if you're having 100 grams of rice and you look down and see what 100 grams of rice looks like, down the line, you're going to know, hey, this is roughly 100 grams of rice, right? And that's, again, going back to why calorie tracking, why weighing your food can be so impactful, is education, right? 3 years down the line, you're going to be able to look at your plate and have at least a rough idea, a better, more accurate idea of how many calories are on your plate. But use the food scale. You can also use things like measuring tools such as like cups and tablespoons and whatnot to provide yourself with a more accurate measurement, especially if you are just sort of eyeballing everything right now. And if you are eating out, I'm not saying you have to bring these things. I actually don't want you to bring like your food scale or cups or tablespoons to a restaurant. That's just crazy in my opinion. But especially when you are at home, start measuring out your portion sizes. Use the food scale, use the measuring tools, and you will have a better idea of what true portion sizes look like. All right, up next, licks, bites, and nibbles. A lick of this, a bite of that, a little nibble of whatnot. Even though these lick, bites, and nibbles may not seem like a lot because they typically aren't. It's a bite of this, a lick of that, a nibble of that. But over a course of a day, over a course of a week, they do add up. You take a bite of a cookie, like a tablespoon of peanut butter, nibbling on your kid's snack can add up to way more calories than you think. And this is, again, another common mistake when it comes to individuals lacking making progress in their tracking their calories. And a good example I like to use here, because I think, again, this is pretty common. This is definitely was common with myself, is I always think about when you get home from work and you're cooking dinner and you're typically hungry, right? That you have your lunch around noon, and then on the way home from work, you can feel that hunger. That beast is trying to break out, right? And then while you're cooking dinner, you start snacking on things. You start snacking on the ingredients from your dinner. You're having some extra snacks in the cabinets while you're cooking dinner. So you got 75 calories here. You have 100 calories there, 75 calories there, and another 125 calories on this. And the next thing you know, within that time span of just cooking dinner, you had an extra 300, 400 calories. And that is just one scenario in the day. A lot of the times that's happening a couple times during the day. You're mindlessly snacking, watching TV. You are, snacking on the office treats that are in the break room. Just grabbing a quick handful of this or a quick bite of that. So in the moment, right, I know these bites might not seem like a whole bunch, but if you do add up these things a couple times a day, a couple times a week, the next thing you know, the sum of calories is the reason you are struggling with weight loss, because it's actually putting you in maintenance for the week. So you're stuck. You feel like you're in this plateau, but you're just eating too many calories. So start to be more mindful of these licks, bites, and nibbles. And if you do have them, measure them out and track them. Track everything that goes in their mouth, everything you eat and swallow. And sometimes I like to even have people get challenged. I like to challenge them in a way to almost get rid of snacking, or at least almost like allow them one snack. And this also helps you create meals. I think another just common struggle individuals have when it comes to weight loss and fat loss, in their hunger specifically, is they're not really creating meals. They're having, 3 grapes, 3 almonds, and half a cheese stick and calling that lunch. It's like, Stacy, that's not lunch. Like, eat some food. Eat a whole meal, have 4 to 6 ounces of protein, have some carbs with it, have some vegetables with it, have some fruit with it, like put a plate together and eat. And that's going to leave you feeling full and satisfied. Yes, it will be more calories than the 3 grapes, the 3 almonds, and half a cheese stick, but you are not going to be battling hunger minute over minute, hour over hour. You're going to allow yourself to feel satiated, to feel full, and feel satisfied for a longer period, helping you manage your hunger and helping you manage your overall calories, because now you don't feel that urge to snack anymore. So start tracking those licks, bites, and nibbles, or maybe even challenging yourself to no snacks today and start eating more meals, or allow yourself at least 1 snack, maybe 2 snacks a day, and just being more mindful there. All right, up next on the list is your oils. So as I talked about earlier, peanut butter, right? A true portion size ends up being not as much as you think, or you at least want it to be. I know at least what I want it to be. Well, the same goes for oils, right? A tablespoon of oil equals roughly 120-ish calories. So when you're prepping meals, using oils, adding oils to your salad, adding sauces and whatnot, it doesn't have to be specifically oils, but adding sauces, adding dressings, you can end up using multiple tablespoons that add up to anywhere from an extra 400 to 600 plus calories on that meal. So again, this is just something to at least be mindful of. Be aware of. There's nothing wrong with having these oils, but they do add up calories over time. They are calorie dense. This is actually a good reason where people who do eat, let's say, an overall healthy diet, they're not having all that many, let's call it like processed foods, whatever that means these days, but they're having whole foods, all natural foods, not eating much junk food and much snacking. But they might be challenged because even though they're having, this organic oil, this extra virgin olive oil, right? Healthy fat, they're actually over consuming it. They're having that 600 plus calories of oil, which is actually putting them, again, in calorie maintenance or even in a slight surplus. So this is just one thing to be aware of. And just make sure you are accurately tracking these oils. You're using the dressings, the sauces, all that stuff. The things you are putting on your food, your salads, you're cooking with. I don't know why I'm saying your, my stutters are kicking in. Or specifically if you're cooking with oils, an easy switch to make is just use an oil spray. Now, don't hammer down on that nozzle and hold it for 3 minutes as you're loading up your plate, because there are still calories in that oil, but it's about 10 calories per quarter second little spritz. So if you just hold it down for, a full on second just to spray the bottom of your pan, that's going to be 40 calories versus, maybe using an oil that is 120-ish calories per tablespoon. You usually use to fill your pan, which is, again, it's actually more towards that 300 number because we're not being as mindful of it as we should be. But just making that switch to use a spray versus maybe an oil can actually save you some calories in the end. But no matter what, just be more mindful of it. Weigh it out, track it, use the tablespoon, making sure you're being as accurate as possible with these oils, dressings, and sauces. All right, up next is your drink and your drink add-on. So here's an example. A black coffee is 5 calories, but your coffee that is actually a mocha frappuccino double axle backflip is over 500 calories. And by the way, that's not a coffee, that's a dessert. Nothing wrong with it. I love going to Starbucks during the wintertime and getting one of those white mocha lattes. Oh, so freaking good. But liquid calories can quickly add up to your calorie number for the day. And in my opinion, this might get a little bit of hate, but I don't think it's worth it. Those calories add up and they typically don't leave you feeling all that satisfied and probably still leave you feeling hungry. And that even goes for marketed healthy shakes and smoothies. I don't know if you've ever seen those naked drinks. They're all like full of fruits, vegetables, healthy ingredients. But some of these healthy smoothies you see in the store, again, those naked ones, can be 250, 300 plus calories that even though they are full of nutrients, they can still end up impacting your calories for the day, taking you out of that calorie deficit. And let's quickly talk about alcohol. Alcohol is usually overconsumed by individuals. Having a couple drinks or cocktails can add up to anywhere of 300 to thousands on thousands of calories. So if your calorie goal is, let's say, 1,800 to 2,000 calories, that can be anywhere from 20% to 60% of your daily calorie intake, right? You're having the 500 calorie coffee and your calories is 2,000 calories. That's 25% of your calories for the day. That isn't going to leave you feeling full. That isn't going to leave you as feeling as satisfied, as I should say. So the trade-off just may not be worth it, right? It's never something's right or wrong. We got to ask ourselves, is this trade-off worth it? Maybe once in a while, like you can treat yourself. I'm not saying don't have these things, but I'm just thinking about like a majority of the time. If we're trying to get the best bang for our buck here, we got to start asking ourselves, what trade-offs are worth it? What trade-offs are not worth it, right? Like right now I'm doing the daily donut diet because I'm trying to show people like investing and having a treat during the week, like enjoying your favorite foods, throwing them in the week rather than white knuckling it and being over restrictive during the week until only lead to overindulging and binging on the weekend can be such a good investment to just eat the donut on like a Tuesday or Wednesday because you really just satisfy that need and it helps you stay on track the next 3, 4, 5 days because you had the treat rather than letting that craving build up day over day until eventually you can't handle it anymore. Until eventually you're like, fuck it, I'm going banana pants on this thing. So that's something I always like to just chat about. Again, there's no wrong or right answers, but a quote I always really enjoyed that really has made a difference for me is, there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. There's no solutions, there's only trade-offs. What's the trade-off of waking up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym? Well, I'm not going to be able to sleep in as much. Like I'm going to be really tired when I wake up. But hey, I'm going to get my workout in, which is going to help lead me to better health, to better strength, to maybe my fat loss goals. But on the other end of it, there are positive trade-offs. If you don't go to the gym at 5 a.m., right? You get to sleep in, you get to relax, you get to be more comfortable. But the trade-off because of that is, all right, maybe we're not taking care of our health. Maybe we're impacting our longevity. So there's trade-offs to everything. We sort of have to ask ourselves, what trade-offs are worth it? What trade-offs are we willing to make to improve our health and our well-being? And what feels sustainable too? And it's not this black and white answer where it's like, all right, I'm going to work out every day at 5 a.m. or I'm going to completely cut out all my, junk food and processed foods and only have whole foods, where it's like the answer is probably somewhere in the middle. Finding that Goldilocks zone where, yes, enjoy the food, but yeah, let's eat some fruits and vegetables and protein and some whole foods a lot of the times as well. But anyways, kind of going on a side tangent there, kind of going back to alcohol. So like I said, these liquid calories can add up to 25, 30, 60, 50% of your calories for the day. And not to mention specifically with alcohol, it's going to give you a case of the fuck it's, right? What does it do? It loosens you up. It relaxes you. You kind of say like, oh, fuck it. I'm going to order the cheese pizza. I'm going to go get a Big Mac and a large fry and a large Coke at McDonald's with an ice cream cone. So it's not that alcohol actually causes you to gain fat. It's the decisions that happen with alcohol, right? One drink leads to two, loosen up, two drinks lead to three, to four, to five, so on and so forth, where then eventually it leads to decisions on, let's go get some treats, let's go get some pizza, let's go get some food of some sort, which again are just calories adding up, getting you out of that deficit, probably putting you in a surplus, making weight loss a little bit more challenging. So again, this is not to say you can and shouldn't have alcohol or liquid calories. It's just that these calories can add up quickly over time, may not be a great bang for your buck if you're doing them pretty consistently. So again, just sort of pick your battles with it. Pick your trade-offs with it. When's it worth it to make the trade-off and when's it not worth it to make the. All right, up next, if you are going through all these things and you're like, hey, I'm doing all these things, I'm dialed in, I'm not drinking my calories, I'm not having like spites and nibbles, I'm mindful of my oils, my tracking accuracy is pretty good. Well, let's talk consistency then. Let's talk consistency, honey, because there's a difference between actually being in a calorie deficit and thinking you are in a calorie deficit. When clients tell me they're in a calorie deficit and they're not making progress, I always check how consistent they're being because I can see their numbers. I can look at their calendar, see when they're getting the workouts in, what their nutrition looks like, and we take a closer look. And they end up not being as consistent as they think they are. The goal ideally is to be 80+% consistent with hitting your calories, hitting your protein, getting your workouts in. So when we take a look on how consistent you're actually being, we notice if we're not making progress, we actually aren't being as consistent as we thought, whether that's from the weekends, whether you're going out to eat a lot, whether you're inconsistent with your tracking even. Consistency is usually the major reason for a lack of progress. And be honest with yourself here. What I want you to do, if you're listening to this, is grab a calendar and over the next 30 days, track and see how consistent you are hitting your calorie target each day. Be accurate with your tracking, be honest with your tracking, and see how truly consistent you are being over the next 30 days hitting your calorie target. Your goal is to be at least 80+% consistent or more. Anything less means now you have something to focus on. Now we have to dial in your consistency over the month. And again, this just gives us data. This isn't like a judgment or hey, you're in trouble for doing this. You might notice like weekends, I keep falling off. I'm dialed in Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, I'm all over the place. I'm having 3,000, 4,000 plus calories per day over the weekend. So then we get a point. We're like, all right, let's dive into this. Let's figure out what the right approach here is. What is the right call? Whether it's like having a little bit more flexibility during the week, whether it's better planning on the weekend, creating more structure on the weekend, whatever it may be. We at least have that information where now we can make the proper adjustments where it's like, hey, you actually weren't being as consistent as you thought. Your weekends are really inconsistent, to be honest. So now let's talk about it. Let's make adjustments and move from there. So track your consistency over the next 30 days of hitting your calories. See how consistent you're actually being. Again, be honest, be accurate, and let's just collect the data and see what happens. Which does lead me to my next point, talking about weekends. I was actually recently chatting with a client of mine who was frustrated with a little bit of a lack of progress, eating about 1,600 calories a day and still not really showing any signs of fat loss. And the first thing I asked was, how do you feel about your consistency? And they responded with, hey, I feel pretty good. I have been on track most of the month with hitting my targets about 21 or 22 days out of the month so far. And that was out of 28 days in total. They were having about a 75% consistency rate, which is still pretty solid. And for some individuals, still can allow them to make progress. So I actually followed up with them and asked them, how are your weekends? And they respond, they're fine. Not great, but not terrible. And they had mentioned that they did feel struggles, like one of the challenges we were working through were the travel, the eating out, the social events. But overall, they thought they managed it pretty decently. So what we did from this standpoint, and what I told her is, I want you to be a little bit more meticulous here. I want you to be a little bit more on top of things and really try to track everything to a T, like really be dialed in, really make it like a top priority. And let's see what happens. Right? Let's just try it out. I'm not saying we have to do this forever, but let's just try it out because we want to collect as much accurate data as possible to see what's actually going on. And that weekend, what we realized on their calories, we're adding up to about 3,500 calories on average per day. That was between Saturday and Sunday. So if you take a look at their calorie target, which was about 1,600 calories per day, that's about 11,200 calories per week. And in this case, with the 1,600 calories per day, plus having 3,500 calories on Saturday and another 3,500 calories on Sunday, actually ended up being 15,000 calories for the week, which made her daily average 2,143 calories on average per day. So she was in a deficit Monday through Friday, right? But with the weekends, it would end up setting them back because they were in a big surplus on Saturday and Sunday. So this just resulted in just being in maintenance for their calories for the week. Therefore, there was no weight loss over time. And I get it. Like the weekend for a lot of individuals is their time to relax, enjoy themselves. They got time off of work. I love that and I absolutely respect it. But just what I want you to do is understand that calories consumed over the weekend do still matter and can impact your progress. It reminds me of the saying one of my mentors taught me. You don't have to count calories, but all calories do count. But what most people typically do on the weekend, and very common, this might be you as well, is instead of aborting the mission on the weekend, not planning to structure your nutrition over the weekend and just go on banana pants, start to actually plan. Start to create some structure for yourself. We have so much structure during the week because we also have a work schedule, we have appointments, we have things going on, kids' schedule. So there is structure typically created for us during the week. It's a little easier to create structure, so we kind of plan around things, but the weekend tends to be a little bit more of a free-for-all. So what you have to do is start to create that structure for yourself. You're so good at planning Monday through Friday, but you stink at planning Saturday and Sunday. So now be a little bit more proactive and start to put a plan together. What are you having for breakfast? What are you having for lunch? Are you working out? Do you have social events you're going to that we need to plan around and work on creating this strategy to help keep things manageable during that social? And if there are unknowns for the weekends, because I get it, like things pop up, friends end up calling you and putting a plan together like, hey, let's do this, let's do that. At least plan what you can. You know, the whole 48 hours of the weekend is not going to be unexpected things going on. And if you think something's going to happen Saturday night, all right, at least plan your Saturday morning, your Saturday afternoon, and then definitely plan your Sunday morning. What will get you right back on track as well. Like one food or one meal isn't going to make or break your progress. But if you go to brunch and get some Bloody Marys and mimosas and, you know, you're eating the pancakes and all this, you know, food that adds up to your calories, that doesn't mean you should say screw it to the rest of the entire weekend and go banana pants. Just plan. And the last tip I'll give you on this is consider calorie cycling. Maybe I'll do a whole podcast on calorie cycling next. That's actually a good idea. I am going to do that, I think. But confirm it with me because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But calorie cycling is actually just looking at your calorie targets for the entire week. And if you were to have, let's say, 2,000 calories a day, that's 14,000 calories for the week. And you can break that down as much as you want. You could have, 1,800 calories during the week. Allow yourself, 22, 24, 2,500 calories on the weekend, which again, as a week as a whole, it ends up equaling 1,500 calories. You're just looking at it as a weekly goal versus a day-to-day goal. And to even add to that, let's say your goal is 1,800 calories every single day. If you are having 1,800 calories every single day, we know that's your deficit. But on Saturday, you allow yourself 2,400 calories, right? 600 calories higher. Again, still look at it as a week, right? As a week, you're still actually in a deficit, right? You're in a deficit 6 days out of the week. 1 day is actually more towards maintenance. But if you have a deficit 6 days, 1 day at maintenance, the week as a whole is still in a deficit. In doing that over time, week over week, month over month, might feel way more sustainable, right? It's a little bit more flexible. It's a little bit more enjoyable. You can stick to it and be consistent with it. Yes, maybe you're not as much as a deficit, right? You're not going to make progress as quote unquote fast or as quickly as you could if you were in a deficit, 7 days a week. But maybe that's what's causing you to yo-yo diet, lose and regain the same weight because you're being too strict on yourself. But if we just take 1 day at maintenance during the week, you give yourself what some individuals call like a refeed day, it may allow you to stay consistent week over week and on track and being that 80+% consistent. And yes, having a little bit more flexibility is maybe what you need to make it more sustainable. So having that day where you just allow yourself an extra 500, 600 calories is what makes this process more enjoyable, more sustainable, and allow you to be more consistent. So that's just an idea to think about. I'm actually going to do my next solo podcast on calorie cycling and break that down, because that's something I use. I'm a big calorie cycler. I'm a weekend warrior. Like, I'll admit it. I love my weekends. So I like to use calorie cycling in that sense, just to allow myself to make this process a little bit more sustainable. So I'll kind of break down all different ways you can calorie cycle in that sense. So anyways, moving on to our last point here. I think this might be one of the most frustrating things, one of the most frustrating truths individuals have a hard time with, is this game takes a little bit of time. Takes a little bit of time. You're just being impatient. You're being impatient with progress. You're being impatient with this whole thing. This is one where a lot of you struggle. You're being too impatient with this process. A common conversation I'll have with some new clients is, tell me I'm not making any progress. And I look at their progress and they've dropped 4 pounds in a month. And my response is, nope, you are making progress. You're just impatient. Or the best one is when someone comes to me with, I'm only down 4 pounds. Only? You're only down 4 pounds? Well, guess what? If you kept this going for another 10 months, you'd be down 40 pounds. And imagine your life down 40 pounds less than you are now. Or here's another good one. Here's another good one from typically once in a while, a new client. I'm not making any progress. Hey, Cynthia, you've been in a calorie deficit for all of 12 minutes. Like, fucking relax. Give it some time. Give it a couple days. Give it a couple weeks. Give it a couple months, to be honest. So basically what I'm getting to is this weight loss thing, it does take time, right? You might be used to the 30 pounds in 30 days or whatever is marketed to you, or you might be influenced by something someone said on social media. But the reality is sustainable fat loss, like losing fat once and for all and developing that fat loss freedom, is going to take more time than you want. Doesn't mean you don't make progress along the way, right? You lose 4 pounds in a month. That's still progress. That's still great progress, but it's just going to take a little bit more time. The goal isn't to lose weight as quickly as possible. The goal is to lose weight as sustainable as possible. Your goal is to lose weight and keep it off for the remainder of your life, forever. And that, my friend, is just going to take a little bit of time. Just invest in that long game. Play the long game with it. Be patient with it. This is why we want to throw in a day where you're at maintenance so you can relax and still enjoy the process. This is where we can focus on consistency and dial in your habits and your behaviors so they become second nature, so they become ingrained into you, so that you can live in freedom forever on ever, in a healthy way as well. So play the long game with it. I understand that we all want to get everything completed, overnight. That's just the life we live in. You can get your groceries delivered to your door. You can binge watch a whole season of your favorite show on TV. You can get food delivered to your door. Just everything in this world is so instant access, right? You can FaceTime someone that lives across the country and see them right away. But in these areas of life, like your health, like building relationships, like your career, work, these things, growing in these things, improving in these things, and making progress in these things, just take time. You're not going to get a promotion from 1 week of work. You're not going to get married from your first date. And you're just not going to lose 50 pounds overnight, or even in a month, even 2 months, 3 months, right? Play the long game, play the sustainable game, and you'll be thankful you did. Because imagine in a year from now, when you lose, let's say 50 pounds, the chances of you keeping that off are very high, very strong, because you took your time, you got the repetition with your habits and your behaviors, you worked through obstacles. And in that time too, like specifically with my coaching, like you're going on vacation and you're going to go enjoy yourself. We're going to stay on track before then. We're going to get right back on track after and continue on. So it's also building up these things, building up your foundation and building up your nutrition and your fitness and these habits behind it, these behaviors, these actions behind it in a way that will help you make progress. But still, we still want you to continue doing these things from a longevity and health standpoint and maintaining the progress you do make standpoint for the rest of your life, as long as you can. We overestimate what we can do in a month, but we underestimate what we can do in a year. So yeah, 30 pounds in 30 days is cool. But typically when you gain it back the next month and then you continue that cycle month over month for a year, you're right back where you started, if not in a worse position. Versus if you lose 1 pound per week on average, and you do that over the course of the year, that's 52 pounds down, and you're keeping that 52 pounds off. So play the long game, play the long game. But that's that. Some of the most common mistakes you're making with calorie tracking and why you are lacking progress when trying to lose weight. So, as I said, just be honest with yourself. Check in with yourself, check your habits, check what you're doing on this weight loss journey or maybe what you're not doing. But just be honest. Audit yourself, double check your work. And maybe those points I talked about earlier, there's something that really standing out. And if you're unsure, just try it. Be like, all right, for the lick bites and nibbles, I'm just going to really pay attention to that and be really more mindful of that. With tracking, you know what? I'm going to get a food scale. I'm going to start measuring everything out to a T. With the weekends, I'm going to actually be a little bit more meticulous with my tracking on the weekends to see if I am really more off than I think I am. So you can do some amazing things here and accomplish great things with this, but we just have to be truthful. We just have to be honest and willing to make these appropriate adjustments as needed. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like the episode, give it a good old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a nice 5-star review if you thought this was very helpful. Share it to a friend as well. As always, if you need any more help on this weight loss journey, this health journey, this fat loss journey, please do not hesitate to reach out or leave a comment down below, because I would be more than happy. I love chatting with individuals and helping them out, or at least diving into what they're maybe struggling with and coming up with some adjustments and coming up with some solutions for them to start making fat loss a little bit easier and a little bit more simple. But I do love you. I do believe in you. Go eat the damn donut. And I'll see you guys soon. Cheers.